Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'akol niyeh bidvaro. I usually quote from the Torah many very positive things like observe the Shabbat, honor your parents, love your neighbor as yourself, ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. But the Bible has other things as well. The Bible says, and it repeats it twice, it repeats it. Once in the book of Leviticus and Vayikra, and another time in Devarim, which is Deuteronomy. It says, if you are not going to listen to my instructions, I want you to know, you will have a tough time. Many ills will befall you. This isn't a free-for-all. If you obey, blessings will come. But if you don't, mind you, there are consequences to what you do. A very important lesson. Because primitive man thought that the gods act independently. They act according to their own ideas, has nothing to do with we human beings. If they feel right, they're nice to us. If they don't feel right, they're angry with us. No, Judaism said that what happens to us is a direct consequence of our own behavior. So the Torah makes emphasis on that. Says, listen, if you're not going to behave, I want you to know that I'm going to be very bad with you. It says, for instance, like this, Ve'im bezot lo tishme'u li, and if you're not going to listen to me, v'alachtem imi bekeri, you're going to walk with me bekeri, keri. I'll tell you what keri means, I think. It says, then I will walk with you also with keri. What does this word keri mean? Well, our rabbis are not very sure. Maybe keri means from the root kar. Kar means cold. You know, if you're going to act in a cold manner with me, I will act the same way, sort of detached, you know. Many poor people feel badly, not so much because of their poverty, because we don't relate to them with warmth. You know, when a rich man comes in, we treat him very well, but when we see somebody that is poor, we think it's inconsequential, as if he isn't there. So maybe, you know, this coldness that we use to relate ourselves with other people has an effect. God says, if you're going to be cold with me, listen, I'm going to be cold with you. Or maybe keri means something else. You know, Rashi says, keri means like mikre. Sometimes it's an accident. If sometimes you treat me well, I will treat you well. If you don't treat me well, I will also. In other words, you don't always relate to God in the same way. You're not always consequent with your obligations. In your family, sometimes you're a good father, sometimes you're not. Then the consequences will be that your children will be the same way. If you don't behave with constancy toward God, God will behave that way with you also. Or maybe it means something else. It means, you know, something happens is bemikre, it means it's accidental. Has nothing to do with God. There is a process that has to do with probabilities in this world. Has nothing to do with God. It happened and that's it. Well, if you're going to think that things happen by themselves, well, I'm not going to protect you either. You know, I recently heard once again a presentation by Rabbi Nissen Mangel. I mentioned him, he's a very important figure in Lubavitch, but I knew his sister very well. We lived in the same city in Caracas for over 40 years, and she was one of my dearest friends. She passed away recently, but she was the one that brought what happened in the Holocaust to the knowledge, to the feeling, to the attention, to the intimacy of many, many Venezuelans, not only in Caracas, throughout Venezuela. She herself had been in Auschwitz. And this Rabbi Mangel says, he who doesn't believe maybe is right. That's the way he came out of the war. But in my case, he says, I must believe. There were so many instances where I saved myself if there wouldn't have been hashgacha pratit, if God wouldn't have been watching over me. This wouldn't have happened. He tells the story that in his hometown, before being deported, they were all gathered and asked to bring all their dollar, their currency, foreign currency, and all their jewelry and deposit them in big boxes that were put out for that purpose. Well, everybody, 1,000 people passed by the boxes, and everybody threw in their money and their jewelry, and that's it. After that, they went back to the barrack where they were. And suddenly, they heard on the loudspeaker, "We're going to visit you in your own barracks." And a soldier came in, and he knocked on the door, and he said, "We know that you still have dollars and jewelry. If you don't give it over to me in this instant, you're going to be dead." At that moment, he said, his mother took him by the hand and took him to the bathroom. And in the bathroom, she tore apart a jacket that he had, and on the shoulder pads, there were dollar bills and jewelry on both sides. And she took out the dollar bills, shred them into pieces, and put it into the toilet, and flushed the toilet. But the water wouldn't go down. Tried it again. Tried it a third time. Finally, she put her hand into the toilet and pushed the pieces of dollars down, and somehow everything disappeared. At that moment, as she took her hand out, in walked in the soldier and said, "What are you doing here?" And she said, "Well, my son is sick, so I had to take him to the bathroom." "Go back immediately." He says, had that soldier come 5 seconds before, everything would have been discovered. And he wouldn't be around. This is one of the episodes that he tells of what happened to him. He says, how can you not believe that there is hashgacha, that somebody is watching over you? Because were it not for that, I would have been dead. So he says, so why was I saved? It says in Tehillim, Lo amut ki echye. I am not going to die, I shall live. Va'asaper ma'aseka. And I'm going to tell what God did. In other words, he says, my purpose now is to be a witness of what happened then. I was saved because I have a message to deliver. Many people died, I don't know why. I can't explain it. But I want you to know that God also saved a number of people in order to tell the story. So you should know how far the cruelty of human beings can go. So that you should know that when somebody tells you, I'm going to shoot you, he may really shoot you. You should know that there are evil people in this world, and unless we take measures to defend ourselves, we will not be able to face the future. So maybe what God is saying, you know, if you're going to say that things happen by themselves, I will also turn away from you. There are many people today, very religious people, that cannot see the hand of God in the establishment of the state of Israel. I am not saying that the Holocaust happened so that the Jewish state be established. But who of us thinks that if today, 2016, there would be a vote in the General Assembly of the United Nations to establish the State of Israel, would there be a State of Israel or not? It happened at a certain moment in history. God guided our people, guided humankind, so that a Jewish state be established, a Jewish state that is the only guarantor of the physical existence of Jews, not only in Israel, but throughout the world. So that while we cannot explain the Holocaust, while we cannot explain many things, on the other hand, we have to be sure and feel that the hand of God is present also, that there's a providence of God that guides this world. We cannot explain every issue. We cannot explain every episode. We cannot explain every war, but we should know that we are not alone in this world.